Statistically speaking, driving your car is far more dangerous than flying. For instance, each year in the United States alone, there are more than 5 million car accidents compared to the 20 aviation accidents. Oddly, however, people seem more afraid of being involved in a plane crash than a car accident, and we think we know why. So stay tuned and don't go away, because we're looking at mysterious airplanes that have gone missing and have never been found. First up, what are some of the earliest aviation mysteries? Well, you're about to find out. Amelia Earhart was the first woman to make a non-stop transcontinental flight across the United States. As the very first woman to cross America in a plane in 1928, and then the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean in 1932. Amelia Earhart proved to people around the world that women were capable of tremendous feats during a largely male-dominated era. But after much fanfare, Earhart's story met a tragic and mysterious end in July of 1937. After flying across the Atlantic Ocean, Earhart chose to up the ante and make the courageous decision to fly around the world in a twin-engine plane, the Lockheed Electra. Sadly, Earhart and her plane disappeared near the international date line in the central Pacific Ocean. For decades, scholars, historians, and aviation experts have struggled to detangle this complex web of mystery, and to this day, a concrete answer to what happened to Earhart remains elusive. It is likely to go down in history as one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time. A few years later, a British South American Airways Lancastrian plane went missing on August 2, 1947, during a connecting flight from Buenos Aires to Santiago. Investigators and air traffic controllers were baffled, as the last communication received by a Chilean Air Force operator was the cryptic message "Stendak," which was based on a World War II code meaning severe turbulence encountered, now descending, emergency crash landing. 50 years later, in the late 1990s, pieces of wreckage were found in the Andes Mountains. In 2000, body parts from the flight's passengers were found well preserved in ice. Rumors ranged from alien abduction to Nazi spies, but an exhaustive investigation uncovered that bad weather caused the crash. Next up, how did 6 planes go missing at the same time? Let's take a look. In early December of 1945, 6 planes vanished. In normal weather conditions, 5 Avenger torpedo bombers took off from their base in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for bombing practice in what is known as the Bermuda Triangle. After experiencing problems with their compasses, the 5 planes lost contact with the ground station. However, workers at the ground station could still hear communications between the pilots of the planes. It was clear to those listening that the pilots became disoriented with their locations, and when the first plane dropped below 10 gallons of fuel, the rest of the planes decided to ditch at sea. The Coast Guard and Navy searched an area of 700,000 square kilometers in 5 days. Astonishingly, during the search, a 6th plane carrying 13 passengers vanished and was never found again. An ocean liner claimed to have seen a giant fireball in the sky. To this day, no debris of the 6 missing planes or their passengers has been found. This was the beginning of the Bermuda Triangle's legendary reputation as a very mysterious place, where objects and people tend to go missing. A year earlier, in December of 1944, Glenn Miller, the leader of a swing band, boarded a plane on December 15th and was never seen again after takeoff. Miller subsequently became an American legend in the swing genre. Miller's plane was headed from London to Paris and took off on a cold, foggy day. The official report of the missing plane ruled that it crashed in the English Channel as a result of either ice buildup on the wings or engine complications. But Miller's fans had other theories, which ranged from him landing and dying in a hospital from cancer to the plane being bombed by friendly fire from English planes. Stay tuned and don't go away, because we're bringing you the most mysterious plane disappearances in aviation history. At the end of the video, we'll reveal the most baffling and tragic plane disappearance in modern times. Up next, what happened to the Star Tiger? Let's have a look. On January 30th, 1948, a British South American Airways Avro Tudor 4, named the Star Tiger, took off from the Azores archipelago, headed for Bermuda. But prior to takeoff, the plane was having problems with a heater and malfunctioning compass. Flying in front of the Star Tiger was a Lancastrian weather plane, designed to monitor bad weather up ahead. To keep the plane at a warmer temperature, the Star Tiger's pilots chose to fly extremely low, at around 2,000 feet. However, this meant that if the pilots were to encounter a problem, they were left with very little room to recover. And at such a low altitude, the plane burned fuel at a much faster rate. When the Lancastrian plane successfully landed, everyone expected the Star Tiger to land any minute, but it never would. Rescue crews searched relentlessly for the Star Tiger, but its 25 passengers and 6 crew members were never seen or heard from again. One crash investigator said, "It may be said that no more baffling problem has ever been presented." Recently, investigators have blamed the design of the plane, strong winds that could have blown it straight into the ocean, and pilot error, citing the decision to fly so low. Even more ominous, not a shred of evidence was ever discovered. Next up, how could things go so wrong on a 2.5-hour flight? Let's find out. 1 year after the disappearance of the Star Tiger, another British South American Airways plane completely vanished. The Star Ariel was flying from Bermuda to Jamaica on January 17, 1949. A short 2.5-hour to 3-hour flight. It should have been a piece of cake. And 1 hour after takeoff, the Star Ariel made a routine communication noting its location to the ground station. But minutes after communicating with the ground, the Star Ariel vanished into thin air at 18,000 feet. Because of the alleged communications problem, a search and rescue team wasn't dispatched for 7.5 hours, which meant that any debris from the plane had ample time to sink to the bottom of the sea. Investigators ruled out 3 common scenarios: that the plane ran out of fuel, pilot error, and bad weather. British investigators concluded that some external cause may have overwhelmed both man and machine. What happened to the Star Ariel was most likely a very sudden and massive mid-flight explosion. Whatever happened aboard the flight, we know 2 things for certain: no debris was ever found, and all 20 passengers were reported missing and presumed dead. Another puzzling aviation mystery came less than 3 decades later in 1962. We're talking about Flying Tiger Flight 739. In March of 1962, during the early stages of the Vietnam War, U.S. Army Flying Tiger Flight 739 vanished over the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean, on its way to the Philippines from Guam. Members of a standard oil tanker in the area reported to have witnessed a bright explosion in the sky. No distress calls were received by any air traffic controllers, and no one knows exactly when things went wrong for those on board. 1,300 people, 48 aircraft, and 8 surface vessels searched 144,000 square miles. Sadly, nothing was found. To this day, no one knows what happened to Flying Tiger Flight 739. Finally, we have the most baffling and tragic plane disappearance in modern times. At the time of this recording, the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, carrying 239 passengers and crew, is the world's greatest aviation mystery. Flight MH370 vanished while en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing on March 8, 2014, approximately 1 hour after takeoff. To this day, there are hundreds of distraught and heartbroken families from dozens of countries around the world who still have yet to learn what happened to their loved ones. All they do know is that their loved ones will likely never come home. Rescuers spent several months scouring the seafloor and the southern Indian Ocean, but efforts to locate the flight's wreckage were eventually called off. The search for the wreckage, its 227 passengers and 12 crew members, began in the South China Sea with 34 ships and 28 aircraft from 7 different countries. Analysis of radar and satellite data has only added to the tragic mystery surrounding this case. Data analysis revealed that after the flight's final message from 1 a.m., for some unknown reason, the plane veered dramatically off course, and for reasons that still elude aviation experts, MH370 was cruising on autopilot for several hours. Now, experts believe that the plane flew until it ran out of fuel and eventually nosedived into the Indian Ocean, which is obviously very far from the initial search zones. In 2016, 2 years after the disappearance, debris from the aircraft was discovered off the coast of South Africa and Mauritius, but yielded no information about what happened aboard the flight. The conspiracy theories surrounding the disappearance of Flight MH370 are too numerous to list here, and thousands of people around the world have become obsessed with the case. Realistically, however, we'll probably never know what happened to Flight MH370. That's a wrap for today's video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.